Okay, I think we're streaming. Welcome, Bucs fans. I am yet in another location tonight. This one's a little weird. So, since my internet is poor and always has been at my house, I, naturally have to go to my wife's college and gank their internet. Currently, I am in the atrium of their library, which stays open 24/7. It's completely empty in here, and it's so awkward. I'm so concerned, like a security guard's gonna walk in here and bust me or something. But so if you hear an echo, that's what it is. So yeah, how about that game, huh? We'll get to that in a second. There's a lot to talk about. First of all, thanks for joining, and I see a couple of you are gonna start trickling in here. Thanks for joining, guys. Like, seriously, it's late, and I have to wake up tomorrow at 5 a.m. So it's going to be a long day tomorrow, but worth it. It was a heck of a game to talk about. If it's your first time watching, well, this is my channel. Who am I? I am Corey Draper. And I started this channel with the intention of making it just a solely NFL channel. And if you look at my other videos on here, you'll see that I did a lot more produced videos in a studio. I haven't had a whole lot of time to do that, so that's why I'm here just doing these reaction videos, because the Bucs are my favorite team, and I want to keep the channel going. I want to keep it alive, and this has been fun. I've been doing these live streams for the past few weeks now. We've had some people joining in, chatting, joining the conversation. So I invite you to join the chat and to start rolling. Let me know what you think about this crazy game that just happened. And man, what a game it was. Monday Night Football, I was nervous because not only did we have injuries to key players, Levante David, Gerald McCoy, but the Bucs usually are terrible on nationally televised games, and specifically even Jameis Winston. He seems to just not have his best games. He tends to be overhyped. He tends to overthrow everything. But this game was not the case. Jameis looked great. The offense looked great. And oh my gosh, where has this been? Meanwhile, so many players are dropping like flies with injuries. So many players on the offensive line, on defense, yet the team still banded together. They gutted it out to the very end, and you can't help but be proud of this team. Now, we might get into this a little bit later, but you can go take this for one or two ways. You can be the optimist and say, hey, man, we're not supposed to be even in this game. This is a playoff contender. They have injuries to their best two defensive players. It should have been a blowout. The Falcons were favored in Tampa by 7 points. So, it was not supposed to be a close game, and it was. The Bucs really just clambered down, and this Falcons offense that just took them out the first time they played, that just ran all over them with Julio Jones, this defense stepped up, and they were hurt. They were hurt some more, and then they were hurt some more again. And yes, they did not hold them to the points that they needed to hold them. But can you blame them? I mean, this was pretty much solidly only backups, both on the defensive line, linebackers, safeties. I mean, everybody got hurt. So, and some people got hurt and then came back in, and others were out for the game. And you had guys like O.J. Howard dropping. You had guys like Deshaun Jackson dropping, and this offense looked as good as it has all year. So it's got to make you wonder, right? But this game, I think, says to me one thing, and it is something I've mentioned in past weeks. It is these players are playing for Dirk Koetter. These players are fighting for Dirk Koetter. Now, let me clarify when I say that. Are they playing harder because they think that Dirk Koetter is on the hot seat? No, that's not the case. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, you've seen in past coaches, Raheem Morris, Greg Schiano, Lovie Smith, at the end of their tenures, you saw these teams, once they were out of the playoffs, just completely lay down and give up a whole lot of yards, a whole lot of points, and everything goes anemic from the offense, defense, special teams. That is not what you're seeing from this team this year. And if you want any hope, grab onto the fact that this team is still talented enough to go toe-to-toe with people even when they're out of the playoffs, completely. So that's something to be hopeful for, and I hope you guys are able to hang your hats on it, because I am too. I bet you can tell from, if you watch the past reaction videos, this one now, I'm a little bit more vibrant, and I'm a little bit more emotional, on an emotional high, because we didn't win this game, but it's almost as if we did. And let's be honest, guys. Hey, the loss actually might be a good thing. We keep a lower pick in the draft, or a higher pick, however you want to say it. And, this was for pride, and I think there was a lot that these players had to be prideful about in this game. Super impressed, particularly with Jameis Winston. Jameis looked... it was really probably one of his best games, if not his best game, since I've seen him. He's come in during a week of people bringing up his turnovers and saying about how I listened to Atlanta sports radio this week because I live in the Atlanta area, and they were just making fun of Jameis, and they were talking about how he's a coach killer because of all of his turnovers, and he's a turnover machine, and they brought up that stat that people were talking about this week. He's got 60-something turnovers over his first 3 years, without mentioning the fact that Peyton Manning had more turnovers over his first 3 seasons, but, that doesn't fit the narrative. So they start going on about Jameis Winston and how he's a coach killer, and then I tweet at one of them saying, Jameis isn't the problem, guys. This team is not good. This team around him, the offensive line is in shambles, the defense is not good, and the play calling has been poor. That is not Jameis's fault. And the radio guy just responded to me basically, well, the guys who follow the team and blah, 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 blah are saying these things, not realizing that I'm a Bucs fan and I live and die with this team. So, those same radio announcers talk about the Peter King theory, which is, Peter King knows more about every NFL team than you do. But you know about your own team way more than Peter King ever will, because Peter King has to study every single team, and there's just not enough time. Whereas we have all the time in the world to study the team that we love. So, I knew it's not Jameis's fault, and I think this particular game proves it. This game proves that Jameis Winston is a gamer. He's a baller. He had everything going against him this game. There's no reason the Bucs should have been in this game. But he had a huge, super high completion percentage, and no turnovers. He did have kind of a fumble, but the offense recovered. And he willed this team. He did everything he could. He got them in field goal position, and Pat Murray missed the field goal. And that's just what happens. That's the theme of this year. And I've been telling my wife, I've been telling my friends, the theme of this year is, this is the season of Murphy's Law. If you don't know what Murphy's Law is it's the notion that everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And that has been this season for the Bucs. It's been super weird. Guys getting injured at just the right time, where the matchup just completely kills this team. The field goal kicker troubles we've had at the beginning of the season. If you look at every individual game, we will have all these big plays, and then suddenly this random penalty, whether it's a phantom penalty or a legitimate one, we'll call it back. We had it happen in this very game where we had these big plays called back on penalties. Or the Falcons would fumble the ball. They fumbled the ball 2 times, and it just so happened, including on the goal line, and it just so happened that the Falcons recovered it. So, what are you supposed to do with that? And even at the end of this game, Winston drove the field with this team, got him into field goal range. We probably had a shot for one more play once he clocks it with about 9 seconds left. But the ref, who's spotting the ball, falls down, wastes about 5 more seconds getting back up and spotting the ball, and we have to clock it, and we have to kick the field goal, the long field goal. And that's just how this season has been. That's just how it's gone. It has torn me down, as I'm sure it's torn you guys down. It has been a brutal season because this team is talented. We saw the talent this team has. We saw the fight this team has. We saw that this team, even with so many great starters out, can compete. And yeah, the Falcons may be a good team. They may not be a good team. The fact of the matter is they're sitting right there in the wild card spot for the playoffs. So, they're a good team. They have their own issues, but the Bucs played a legitimate team, and they played them tooth and nail, and honestly, it should have gone into overtime, but at the very least. So, yeah, the Bucs lost, and yeah, we shouldn't. There are no moral victories in football, right? We shouldn't be so happy that the Bucs lost the game. Well, when your season is you're looking at 4-12. Let's be honest, and it's the time of year when actually losses can be a good thing because it hurts your draft stock. It's okay to be happy that hey, we didn't pull it out, but the team looked good. You do not want these situations with the past coaches where the team just gives up. And that leads me into my next point is, it's the big debate, right? Should Cutter stay or should he go? And if you followed this channel at all, if you followed what I've said, you've got to wait until the end of the year. People have been throwing Cutter under the bus since like week 6. And you just can't do that. That's why you don't fire coaches in the middle of the year. You got to wait and see how it plays out. And you've got to see if these players are giving up or not. And they're not. And that's the thing. And that's what killed Lovie Smith. That's what killed Greg Schiano. That's what killed Raheem Morris. Honestly, it's what killed John Gruden. So you guys, whether you want Cutter gone or not, just take a look at this team and see that they haven't given up. So, whether it's for Cutter or for other reasons, it doesn't matter. We know that when teams give up, that means the coach has lost the team. And what I'm seeing is a team that is still together and that Cutter has not lost them. And so far, I still have not seen reason to fire Cutter as a head coach. Now, as an offensive coordinator, I can see that argument. I think we have seen that this offense has not done enough to succeed. And that does go on Dirk Cutter as the play caller. Now, if I'm the Glazers and I sit Cutter down at the end of the season and I say, what are you going to do to fix this team? What I want to hear is Cutter having some humility, and I want to hear him say that, hey, this has been my fault, and I'm going to look into giving up play calling, whether it's to Todd Monken or some other outside source. What I also want to hear from him is what other personnel, as far as coaching changes, he's going to make. I mean, there's going to have to be some clear effort to overhaul this team and fix the issues on the coaching side, because it's right there. It was before our eyes tonight. This team, even when it's full of backups, has the talent to win a game in the NFL. And if you look at it in the context of the Bucs teams over the last 10 years, guys, this is different. This is different than any other time under any previous head coach that we've had recently. These teams aren't giving up, and I think it's indicative of Cutter's leadership. He's leading these players. Now, maybe it's not Cutter. Maybe it's the player leaders that we have on the team. Maybe it's Jameis. Maybe it's Quan. Maybe it's Gerald. Maybe it's Levante. Maybe it's these other players that are stepping up. But either way, I don't know if I've seen enough to fire Cutter just yet. Now, again, let's wait and see how the season ends. Let's wait to see how these last 2 games play out. If we see give up in those teams, if this team just completely gets blown out against the Saints and against the Panthers, okay, maybe, let's chat right there. But let's take a breath. Let's really look at everything in perspective of the last few seasons. Another thing I want to talk about real quick, something I've been talking about before, is there was an article going around a few hours ago that the Bucs have picked up Jason Light's option. Now, whether or not you want Light to stay, that is kind of a misleading title. If you actually would read the articles, it said that the Bucs picked up his option in the summer. This isn't new. It just wasn't reported until now. So that means Light could still get fired after this season. And I bring that up because that's another person that people have been talking about, of like maybe it's his fault that this season has gone the way that it has. But I think credit should be given to Cutter for how these backups played. I think he deserves it. He's the one that brought these guys in, like Adarius Glanton. Quan's not a backup, but Quan Alexander was the leader tonight on the defense. Devontae Bond, these guys that are coming in, Kendall Beckwith, these are Light guys. These are Jason Light guys that he's brought in that have filled in the gaps and that fought so hard tonight. yeah, there's still some holes, and particularly on the offensive and defensive line. And that is Light's fault. And I want to see how Light responds to this season. I want to see if he sees what we see, and I'm sure he does, and that's that this team needs major help on the defensive line specifically. Now, you saw tonight how a makeshift offensive line could still keep us in the game. But the big thing is the defensive line is the big reason that, we are giving up these points late in games. The secondary is gassed, and we need big sacks. And we came up with a big sack tonight, but it just wasn't enough. We need more. We need more pressure. And, yeah, that's Light's fault. That's Light's fault. He took some risks, and they didn't pay off. But with a GM, I think that you need to give them more time, and I want to hear from Light. If I have him sitting in my office, I want to hear him saying, hey, we're going to attack this offensive line, we're going to attack this defensive line, and that we're going to go hard at them for the free agency and for the draft. And let's see what happens. And that's another coaching change I think I might need to see is Mike Smith. I personally think I've seen enough of him and how he has handled this talent or lack thereof, and the plays he's called, and the weird Julio Jones going off in the last Falcons game, I feel like is his fault, playing a whole bunch of quarters to this guy and not pressing this guy who's going to run rampant on your defense and not adjusting. The in-game adjustments have been terrible. So there's a lot that can change on this team and still keep the head coach. Just throwing it out there. If we fire Cutter, okay, that's fine. Do we hire Gruden afterwards? Okay, that's fine. They'll have my support no matter what. But I want you guys to really look at this season as a whole, and I want you to take perspective when calling for this guy's head or that guy's head. Speaking of Gruden, it was great seeing his speech on TV. I was really disappointed that ESPN cut off the play that he was going to run on the field. I hope some of you guys saw that. Maybe not. I'm not sure, but I think I'm going to try to look that up online later. Just that it was a Super Bowl play it was a Super Bowl. It was the first play that he ran. Anyway, I love the speech. Gruden is a great guy. I never wanted him fired in the first place. If we brought him in, sure, that would be great. I would be happy. It's fine. If we brought in any other coaches, I'm going to have a lot of excitement. I'll be fully behind them. But right now, our head coach is Dirk Cutter, and if I am running the team, I'm not sure if I get rid of him at this point. So let me see if I have anything else in my notes. Another thing too I want to point out is that Deshaun Jackson was taken out of this game, and O.J. Howard was taken out of this game with injuries, and suddenly we're left with the same offense we had last year. We have Peyton Barber in the backfield. Now, that wasn't a thing last year very much, but we have Mike Evans as the number one receiver, and suddenly we're targeting him, and we're targeting him in the red zone. And we suddenly have a run game, and the offense is moving without Deshaun Jackson. Isn't that weird? And without O.J. Howard. And it's interesting to me that these weapons that we brought in that were supposed to come in and revolutionize this offense, as soon as they get out of the game, the offense looked like it did last year. It looked like it did in the first game this season against the Bears, even though those guys were in. I don't know. I don't know if there's something to that, but I think it's worth raising the question. Is the reason we were able to move the ball so much because we didn't have so many weapons? It's so weird to say, but maybe we just went to kind of Old Faithful and targeted Mike Evans a whole bunch. So I think the play calling, it looked like it was better. And maybe that's why we targeted Evans so much, which is what we've been calling for this whole season, is because Deshaun Jackson was out. So maybe taking out Deshaun Jackson and taking out OJ, that forced Cutter to stop being cute and to go with what he knows. I don't know, maybe. it should be interesting to look. So I want to hear what you guys say. I've rambled on enough. I'm going to cut it off pretty early here because it's after midnight, and again, I have to wake up at 5 a.m. But let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about everything I had to say about Cutter, about the performance tonight, about Jameis Winston. And Patrick Murray. By the way, I want to bring up Patrick Murray has been the MVP of the season, so do not be angry at Patrick Murray for missing that kick. I actually had confidence that he would make it because he is such a bulldog and he has the confidence you want in a kicker, but kickers miss, and beyond 50 yards, it happens. And it's this Murphy's Law season that I've been talking about. That just, he's been money this whole time. It's his first opportunity to hit a game-tying field goal, and he missed it. It's just one of those things, and it's how the season has gone. For whatever reason, we have bad juju on this team, and it is what it is. You know, we're a 4-win team. We'll probably be a 4-win team by the end of the season. So don't hate on Pat too much. So anyway, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on Dirk? What are your thoughts on Light, Jameis Winston, the fact that Djax was out, the fact that O.J. Howard was out, the fact that we had all these injuries and we still competed and we still almost won the game against a playoff contending team. Heck of an effort. I want to hear what you guys think. Let me know down in the comments. Hit me up on Twitter at @ThePlayReaction. Love to talk to you about it. Well, until next Sunday, go Bucs.